Sciences. And Alhamdulillah for your time and commitment this Saturday morning. And as you can see, I am live here from our very own studio from IIUM located in HS building, IIHS IKHS. Alhamdulillah. So topic given to me is ethics in radio programming, and today going to look into integrating professional standards with Islamic principles to create ethical and responsible radio content. Okay, so why is this importance of us to talk about ethical practices in radio? Not only in radio, but last week one of my colleague, Dr. Harmi, have shared about ethics in journalism, in broadcasting as a whole, and today we're going to look into radio specifically. So ethical practices in radio programming are crucial. Why? It's for maintaining the public trust, because we are the media people, the broadcasters, the listeners, the viewers put trust on the broadcasters. So that is why we need to maintain the ethical practices in order to maintain the public trust at the same time. Secondly, preserving the integrity of the medium and upholding societal values. So to ensure that radio content aligns with the professional standards and moral principles, leading to more transparent, responsible and impactful broadcasting. It is a fun industry, but somehow it's also you are carrying a big responsibility. As radio producers and broadcasters, we are bound by a code of ethics that guides conduct in our presenting content. So this code is crucial as it helps broadcasters to navigate the complex landscape of media responsibilities, balancing entertainment with the need to educate and inform the public. That is our main purpose. And radio broadcasters must comply with ethical standards to fulfill the objectives of programming, which includes not only entertaining but also instilling values in the audience. All right. Okay. Talking about the code of practice, I'll show you, or we'll share several code of practice that we are using currently. The producer especially is the guardian of the program output, ensuring that it does not fall foul of the legal necessities placed on broadcasters. As you can see, this is me, but somehow this was 2008 if I'm not mistaken lah. So as a radio broadcaster, we must adhere to the codes of practice, which act as a guidelines for creating responsible radio content. And these codes ensure that programs uphold ethical standards and align with Islamic teachings, of course, fostering a more transparent and accountable media environment. In UK, for example, they have Ofcom, or Office of Communication, where Ofcom Broadcasting Code sets out standards for all TV and radio programs. So normally all codes are protecting both or providing or guiding both mediums, TV and radio at the same time. So they have their own codes of guidance on fairness and privacy, on taste and decency and general program standards. And these codes typically address issues such as truthfulness and accuracy in reporting, fairness and impartiality in program content, respect for privacy and confidentiality, protection of children and vulnerable individuals, avoiding discrimination, responsible use of language and imagery. And inshallah, we're going to look this into in depth by one by one, inshallah. And adherence to these codes of practice is essential for maintaining the credibility and integrity of radio broadcasting, of course. And in Malaysia, for instance, we also have Malaysian Code of Ethics for Journalists. Basically, this includes for social media journalists, because nowadays everything is on user-generated content, right? So the code, the Malaysian Code of Ethics for Journalists, outlines the principle and guidelines for ethical journalism practices in Malaysia. And besides that, we also have content code. The content code is the principal source for industry self-regulation, as it contains governing standards, the best practices for content dissemination within the communications and multimedia industry in Malaysia. Okay, even though it's for multimedia, but somehow for terrestrial broadcasters, for terrestrial station, they also have online or streaming platforms. So therefore, we can refer to the content code. Okay, next is Islamic principles in radio programming, right? So ethics in Islam, hold on. Okay. Ethics in Islam, particularly as pertains to radio programming, is grounded in the principles derived from Quran and Sunnah. Even though we have the code of conduct or the code of practices, but somehow as Muslim, as our part of the da'i, so we are derived from the Quran and Sunnah. The principles are derived from Quran and Sunnah, and these ethical guidelines are of course essential to ensure that radio contents aligns with our Islamic values and serves the community positively. Okay, the word positively, because sometimes it maybe the niyyah is aligned, it does not aligns with this values, but somehow they thought that it is good for the community. But somehow that is why, as broadcaster, radio content should be aligned with Islamic values and serve the community positively. The integration of Islamic da'wah into radio programming involved in all levels of radio programming, right? Before we look into the ethics, and but somehow we need to understand the levels or the processes of radio programming. So each stage of programming not only demands technical proficiency, but also adherence to ethical standards that uphold the values of journalism and broadcasting. All right. So I hope you can also enjoy the photos that I provide, because some of the photos, like this photo, this is one of our student from Philippines, and he is also one of our guests, in terms of our radio programming. The program called as Harun Talks. Okay, so he shared on Islamic values, because he is also one of the influencer preacher in Philippines. All right. Okay, and move on to aligning professional ethics and Islamic teachings. In ethics in Islam, particularly in the context of da'wah, okay, we look at it from the perspective of da'wah, which means encouraging good and preventing evil, where this is essential for guiding the conduct of broadcasters and assuring that the messages are aligned with Islamic values again. Yeah. And the principles of Islamic ethics provide a framework for radio programming that not only informs but also uplifts the educates of the audience in a manner consistent with the teaching of Islam. Okay, this is stated in Ali Imran, verse 104, and let there be arising from you a nation inviting to all that is good, enjoining what is right, and forbidding what is wrong, and those will be the successful. So this is a basic guideline, the fundamental guideline, right? Okay, looking forward to stages of radio programming. Okay, and we're going to look into the ethics phase by phase. Okay, first is the pre-production stage. In the pre-production stage involve planning and basically preparation for a radio program. And this includes brainstorming ideas, determining the program format, the selecting topics, preparing scripts, and also budgeting. And second is production phase, where during this phase, the actual broadcasting occurs, whether you are broadcasting live or you are recording the program. Okay, and this includes recording the program, managing live interactions if it is applicable, and ensuring that the technical aspects of the broadcast are executed smoothly. Okay. And thirdly is the post-production stage. And in this stage, it involves editing the recorded material, finalizing the content, and preparing it for broadcast. So this stage also includes evaluating the program's impact and gathering feedbacks from the audience, right? Okay, in these three stages, in pre-production, we will discuss on the truthfulness, honesty, and transparency, justice and fairness, as well as social responsibility. On second stage, production, the sensitivity to cultural diversity, respect for privacy, and the use of music and sound effect. And last but not least, in post-production, we're going to look into handling sensitive information and vulnerable subjects, corrections and accountability in post-broadcast, managing listeners' feedback, multi-platform ethics for radio content, and fast-checking and quality control. Okay, so these are the stages and the ethics that we're going to look into. Okay, first stage, the pre-production. As we mentioned earlier, the pre-production stage involves planning and preparation for the program, and this includes brainstorming ideas. The producer will set a session with the production team to have a brainstorming ideas, where they determine the program format, selecting the topics, preparing the scripts, as well as the budgeting. And this stage is crucial for laying the foundation for a successful and impactful radio program, because this is a time for you to ensure that every element is carefully considered and executed in accordance with ethical guidelines. So this is the first phase, the fundamental phase, in order for you to plan the stage of the radio program process, the whole process. Yeah? So it involves defining the program's objective, who is the target audience, what is the content structure. Okay, and at this stage also, you have identified the host, the person in charge, and all the production team. So this stage is vital for ensuring the program effectively resonates with its intended audience and fulfill its intended purpose, promoting constructive engagement with the content. Right? Okay, the first ethics when they discuss under pre-production is truthful, honesty, and transparency. So ensuring that ideas reflect factual information. We have discussed on the idea, the concept, the content, and now especially for news, public affairs segments. Yeah? So plan content that aligns with facts and avoids manipulations. Research thoroughly need to be done, yeah, for us to get accurate information. So when dealing with complex or controversial topics, for instance, it is essential to present multiple perspectives and avoid biases. So we may discuss who is the suitable guests and whatsoever. So this ensures that audiences receive a balanced understanding of the issue. And it's also essential to ensure that the topics chosen for discussion are based on accurate information. So it's not just you pick any topic and you just invite any Tom, Dick and Harry. Yeah. So this involves thorough research and consultation with knowledgeable sources to avoid misinformation. This includes fact-checking information from various sources, avoiding relying solely on unverified information, and acknowledging limitations in data or information gatherings. So disclose intention behind the program, including sponsorship or paid segments to avoid misleading the audience. This includes transparently disclosing any potential conflicts of interest or financial connections that could influence the content of the program. So your major concern is in the content of the program. Yeah? Okay, for instance, I take one case study in terms of truthfulness, honesty, and transparency. This is based on FTC approved final orders against Google, right? This is on 2019, yeah, where the Federal Trade Commission has finalized consent orders, Google and iHeart Media settling allegations that they produce and add nearly 29,000 deceptive first-person endorsement by radio personalities, promoting the personalities' use of experience with Google Pixel 4 in 2019 and 2020. But according to FTC, in 2019, Google hired iHeart Media and 11 other radio networks in 10 major markets to have radio personalities record and broadcast first-person endorsement of the Pixel 4 phone. Yeah? So Google provided iHeart Media with the scripts detailing the personalities' experience with the Pixel 4. But however, the personalities were not provided with the Pixel 4 before recording and airing most of the ads, and therefore they did not regularly use the phone. Basically, they have no idea and they have no experience on using the phone. Yeah. So this principle is critical in Dawah as well. As broadcasters, we are expected to convey accurate and honest information, and the Quran emphasizes the importance of truth, and this is reflected in the ethical obligations of those engaged in Dawah, especially. So the success of Dawah is significantly influenced by ethical conduct of the communicator itself, which includes being truthful and transparent in their messages. So this principle is essential for maintaining the credibility of the message and the messenger at the same time. So the commitment of truth fosters trust between the broadcaster and the audience, which is essential for effective comm. As stated in Al-Ahzab verse 70, believers fear Allah and speak the truth. Even though Google and iHeart Media. So it's important for us to deliver the right message, the accurate message. Okay, second, we move on to justice and fairness. Ensure that ideas reflect factual information, especially for news and public affairs. Again, yeah, it's very important, especially for documentary, for talk shows program. We plan the content aligns with the facts and avoids manipulation. Research thoroughly is essential to ensure that topics chosen for discussion are based on accurate information, involve thorough research and consultation with knowledgeable sources to avoid misinformation. We may have several references to ensure it is not misinformation. So radio programming must remain impartial and unbiased, avoiding any political, religious or ideological learnings, and broadcasters should present information or perspective from diverse viewpoints to ensure listeners receive a balanced understanding. And the planning, in this planning phase, in the post-production phase, we should include diverse perspective, especially when dealing with sensitive topics. Even though we are government-owned station, but as a radio station, as a media, we are non-partisan, to maintain our justice and fairness. All right. For this case study, I've chosen the BBC case last year, last November 2023. So the BBC has been accused with its journalists of failing, I guess this is very obvious to us, of failing to tell the story of the Israel-Palestine conflict accurately, investing greater effort in humanizing Israeli victims compared with Palestinians, and omitting key historical context in coverage. Okay, so the accusations made by the BBC journalists themselves. So they sent Al Jazeera the letter as a humanitarian disaster in Gaza escalates and as grim milestones are reached at peace. So they claim that the broadcaster carefully portrays Israeli suffering by, for instance, telling audiences the names of the victims, covering individual funerals and interviewing affected families. But in comparison, humanizing coverage of Palestinian civilians has been lacking. So it is a poor excuse to say that BBC could not better cover stories in Gaza because of difficulties gaining access to the Gaza Strip. And the letter also says that the BBC has organized trauma support and listening sessions for staff affected by this conflict. All right, so it also happens in organization in broadcasting station as big as BBC. All right. Okay, in terms of public affairs programs, should be presented objectively without bias. Yeah, for example, during discussion or controversial topics, broadcasters should give equal airtime to diverse perspective and avoid promoting specific political agendas. If we are inviting two parties, then we have to give them both time to share their own opinions. So this ensures that audiences are informed and not misled by biased informations. In Surah An-Nisa, verse 40, indeed, Allah does not do injustice even as much as atoms weight, while if there is a good deed, He multiplies it and gives for Himself a great reward. Right? So it means that always be justice as media practitioners, always practice justice and fairness. Okay, the third one is social responsibility. Okay, in your plannings, radio program plannings, we should also aim to inform and educate the objective as our objective. Educate the audience, contributing positively to the society. Yes, we have our target audience, but we have also our social responsibility. So this includes selecting the topics that promote public welfare and awareness of social issues. So the production team should consider the potential impact of their content to the audience. This includes avoiding harmful stereotypes and promoting messages that foster understanding and community engagement. So the distribution of the program should be approached with a sense of responsibility. This includes considering the potential reach of the program and its implication for the audience. It's not our own satisfaction only, but most important is the implication. How does it affect our audience? So Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, said, the faithful in their love for one another are in their having mercy for one another and in their kindness toward one another. Unlike one body, when a member of it ails, all the parts of the body call one another to share the pain through sleeplessness and fever. Hadith riwayat by Muslim. So select topics that promote awareness, education or community building without causing harm. All right. Okay, an example of a radio program that focusing on social responsibility. I take one Malaysian radio station, that is Fly FM. They have a program called Fly FM Cares in Malaysia. And this program showcases initiative and campaigns aimed at addressing social issues, supporting communities and raising awareness on topics such as mental health, environmental sustainability, as well as charitable causes. For example, for instance, environmental awareness. The station promotes sustainability efforts by highlighting eco-friendly practices and organizing green campaigns such as recycling programs or cleanup events. In charity drives, they also involve in fundraising events, disaster relief efforts, and collaborations with local charities to assist vulnerable communities. And similarly, basically most radio stations in Malaysia, we do produce such programs. Similarly, like Light FM, they also incorporated social responsibility into the content by focusing on health and wellness topics through segments such as the Light Breakfast, where experts discuss lifestyle changes and emotional well-being. So you can try to tune in any of our radio stations, and then you can find these kind of programs are very popular. Where these initiatives align with the concept of social responsibility by using the radio platform, not just for entertainment, but also to positively impact the society and empower the listeners with information and resources, because we are the information provider. All right. Okay, that's about our first stage in pre-production stage. All right. So we move on to the production, and we're going to look into the ethics in production process. All right. So if you have any questions, you can do so in our chat box. Yeah. Okay. In production stage encompasses the actual creation of the radio program. This includes scripting, recording, as well as editings. So this stage involves creating the actual content, which can be live or pre-recorded. After you plan, then in your plannings, you have decided whether you want to go for live or you want to go for pre-recorded. So this process involves careful planning, script writing, talent selection, as well as sound engineering and post-production editing to ensure the final product meets the highest quality standards and ethical considerations. Now we are talking about the standards. In planning, yes, we are talking about the standards, but more to the content program. Okay, the production stage requires a strong commitment to ethical practices, where this involve incorporating sensitivity to cultural diversity, upholding human dignity, and protecting individual privacy throughout the process. Yeah. Additionally, producers must adhere to copyright laws, avoid conflicts of interest, maintain professionalism in all interactions. By prioritizing these ethical guidelines, radio productions can build trust with the audiences and contribute positively to their communities. Okay, and sometimes they also it's not between the producer or the host with the listeners or the viewers, but sometimes the hiccups also involve between the producer and the host or the DJ or the announcer. Yeah. So in this phase or in this stage, sensitivity to cultural diversity also very, very important. Yeah? Why? Because producers, they should avoid stereotype and be aware of the cultural backgrounds of the audiences. Okay, we have identified our target audience, then we have to be very sensitive on their culture. So this includes selecting topics and language that are culturally sensitive and inclusive. So engaging with community representatives during the planning stage can help ensure that diverse voices are considered. So avoid stereotypes or culturally inappropriate themes. Factor in holidays, for instance, or significant events to reflect the cultural values of the audience. Yeah? And radio programming must respect the inherent dignity and worth of the audience. Content should avoid demeaning, dehumanizing, or discriminatory messaging. Radio programming also should avoid using language that is offensive or insensitive to certain cultures. So when referring to individuals from different cultures, use respectful and accurate terms and avoid generalizations or stereotyping. So understanding and respecting cultures and diversity of your audience is crucial in fostering a positive and inclusive radio environment. Yeah? So for example, a radio station targeting a diverse community could dedicate specific segments to highlight cultural events, traditions, and perspective. And this promotes inclusivity and fosters a sense of belonging for listeners from different backgrounds. All right. For our case study in cultural diversity, I'm going to show, we're going to share after this in terms of how Radio Nepal inclusivity towards their listeners. Right. Discussions around media coverage in Malaysia, for instance, often revolve around respecting in the three R's. That is the race, religion, and royalty. Yeah, emphasizing that journalists and broadcasters need to treat carefully in such areas. So the final product should reflect cultural sensitivity, ensuring that it resonates positively with the intended audience and does not perpetuate harmful or stereotypes or biases. Right? In Surah Al-Hujurat verse 13 did mention about the sensitivity in diversity, yeah, or mankind. Indeed, we have created you from male and female, and made you peoples and tribes that you may know each one another. And indeed, the most noble of you in the sight of Allah is the most righteous of you. And indeed, Allah is knowing and acquainted. Okay, this is what I mentioned just now. Radio Nepal launches news and program broadcast in Bajika language. Okay, this is on 2024, or recently 13th February. Yeah. In Nepal, yeah, in Nepal, India. Okay, they have this radio called Radio Nepal lah. So the producers should aware of cultural diversity and ensure that the language and imagery used in the program are appropriate and respectful. Yeah, for example, this Radio Nepal that is on air 24/7 had been broadcasting news in 21 languages and programs in 20 languages before. Okay, meaning before February this year. And Bajika language speakers population is concentrated mainly in Rautahat Bara, Sarlahi, among the district of the Madhya province. So the population of Bajika speakers in Nepal is nearly 1,133,000 as per the latest census. So Bajika is spoken by most number of people in Madhya province after Maithili and Bhojpuri languages. Right? So it is the 6th place among all languages spoken in Nepal in terms of the number of speakers. So Radio Nepal's Executive Director, Budi Bahadur KC, said, Radio Nepal is a model of an inclusive media in terms of languages, content and human resources. The local people's ownership towards the state media will increase with the broadcasting of news and programs in their mother tongue. So by understanding the culture context of the audience, the producers avoiding stereotypes ensure that context is respectful and inclusive. So this includes using culturally appropriate language, avoiding offensive jokes or references, and representing diverse perspective fairly. So they introduced and they started to use to add one more language in Radio Nepal, that is Bajika language. Okay, that's how they suits their target audience. So producers and announcers, they should strive to showcase the richness and diversity of cultures in their programming. Even though they had already 20 languages, but they add one more because it's crucial for the radio to fulfill the needs of their listeners. Yeah? So we should aware of the local customs and traditions and avoid making any content that could be offensive and respectful to any groups. All right, about cultural diversity. Okay. All right, if I'm too fast, you can just intrude me. Okay, second, respect for privacy. Respecting the privacy of individuals featured in the program also crucial. Basically, all the processes are crucial, right? So this includes obtaining informed consent and being cautious about the use of sensitive information, right? It's imperative to safeguard personal details shared on air, as any breach of confidentiality can have severe consequences for the individuals involved and the reputation of the broadcaster itself, right? It is important to prioritize the protection of sensitive information, such as names, addresses, personal stories, unless explicit permissions given or granted by the individual involved. So by upholding these standards, radio broadcasters can foster trust and maintain a positive relationship with their audience. So the production team must continue to respect privacy concerns, ensuring that any personal stories shared are done with consent, okay, and that individuals are not exploited for any entertainment purposes. Yes, we are achieving our goals and objectives, but somehow we need to respect for privacy. Producers should be mindful of the potential impact of their content on the individuals involved and ensure that they are not portrayed in negative or disrespectful light. All right. Okay. For this case study, I chose Australian prank call. This is on December 11, 2012. Right? An Australian DJ who made a hoax call to a hospital caring for the Duchess of Cambridge made a tearful apology as the coroner ruled the nurse who answered the call took her own life after it was broadcast. So Jacinta Saldanha, 46, a night sister at King Edward VII Hospital in London, where the pregnant Duchess was being treated for severe morning sickness, was found hanged 3 days after the prank call by Melanie Craig and fellow DJ Mike Christian, pretending to be the Queen and Prince Charles. Okay, and the inquest heard Saldana blame herself for transferring the call, which she believed was genuine. on to the nurse caring for the Duchess who revealed details of her condition, broadcast on Sydney's 2-day FM radio station on 4th December 2012. I cannot imagine if I was the DT. Okay, so respect for privacy is very, very crucial. We need to take precautious actions because we never know what are the impacts. Prank calls, yes, it is interesting. It is fun to produce such programs, but somehow the impacts are very, very we don't know what the impacts would be. But somehow this is very violation of privacy, right? By being somebody else, not even somebody else, but you are pretending to be the queen and the prince, right? So take precautions not to disclose personal information on air unless explicit consent is given. That is for sure, right? Before you get consent, before being approved, nothing can be shared or nothing can be broadcasted. So this includes avoiding the use of name, addresses, or identifying information without proper authorization. The production team should establish clear procedure for obtaining consent and handling sensitive information, ensuring that all individuals involved are fully aware how their information will be used, right? So for instance, during interview, ensure guests consent to how their information will be used so that we know which part can be on air or can be broadcasted or not. Right? In Surah An-Nur stated verse 27, O you who believe, do not enter houses, even enter houses other than your own houses until you ascertain welcome and greet their inhabitants. That is best for you, perhaps you'll be reminded. Even as Muslim, entering somebody's house also we need approval. Okay? What more on other people's information? Okay, we move on to the third ethics, use of music and sound effects. Okay, be cautious with how people or groups are portrayed through our editing choices, music or sound effects that we're going to use. Music director, sound engineer, producer, announcer, all these people, all this team in your production team need to ensure the correct use of licensed music to avoid copyright issues. So be mindful that sound effects are not offensive or misleading. Music and sound effects can be powerful tools for enhancing our radio programming. Yes, I do agree that. But their use must be approached with care and consideration. Music choices should align with the program's tone and content, and copyright restrictions should be strictly adhered to. We need to ensure that all music and sound effects are licensed appropriately, as unauthorized use can lead to legal repercussions. But somehow there are certain programs that you may not need any music at all or any sounds at all. And similarly, sound effects should be selected thoughtfully to avoid being offensive, misleading, or distracting your listeners. So their primary function is to enhance the program's narrative or emotional impact, not to sensationalize it or manipulate the audience. By carefully considering the potential impact of music and sound effects, broadcasters can contribute to a more engaging and ethically responsible radio experience. Then we need to have a very critical listening skills, in terms of audio, in terms of the music, sounds, crucial listening skills. So they are very alert. For instance, some radio talk shows have used dramatic sound effects during discussions of sensitive topics like accidents, crimes, or natural disasters. And this can be perceived as unethical as well, as it diminishes the gravity of the situation and priorities entertainment over respectful reporting. Sometimes we don't need any sound or any background music or any effects, because such practices can breach broadcast ethics, as they can distort facts and harm listeners' emotions and disrespect the peoples affected by the events that we are covering. Okay? And from Surah Luqman verse 6, and of the people who is by the amusement of speech to mislead others from the way of Allah without knowledge, and who takes it in ridicule, this will have a humiliating punishment. Okay, so attribution, for instance, credit sources when using third-party content or pre-recorded interviews are also need to be highlighted. Plagiarism, in terms of ensuring your scripts, commentary, or promotional materials that use any sound effects are original and appropriately referenced. So we may need to know what are the sources that we are using, because nowadays you can easily access to any online musics and effects, right? For this case study, for this use music and sound effect case study, again in Malaysia, it happens, where Muslim Malaysia ban the hit song Despacito on the state radio and TV and branded it as un-Islamic point. So if the broadcasters or producer are unaware of this kind of policies, then it's very, very crucial for us to remind or alert our broadcasters friends. Yeah, the most streamed song in history will no longer be played in any of the government-run media outlets in Malaysia. This is on July 2017. Communication Minister during that time, Saleh Said Keruak, said the song was reviewed and banned because of public complaints that the lyrics are obscene. And he told to the Associated Press that a remix of the song featuring Justin Bieber is not affected. Therefore, the song in YouTube is a different issue. It's not affected. Only on TV and radio stations. Yeah. So he also quoted by local media as saying private radio stations should censor the song themselves out of sensitivity to local culture. So awareness, be mindful as a media players are very, very critical. Okay, and now we move on to our last stage, right? In the third level, in post-production stage, we follow the initial recording of audio content. It involves refining and enhancing the recorded material, the recordings that we have recorded just now, your programming, to ensure that the final product meets the desired quality standards and effectively engages the audience. So in this stage, in radio programming, the final process after recording, the raw audio content is refined, edited and prepared for broadcast or distribution. So it ensures that the program meets professional quality standards, adheres to the editorial guidelines and also engaging for the target audience. Okay, it's not about changing the plannings anymore, but it's about to adhering the guidelines. You have during the production, you have met the quality standards and engaging with the target audience. Right, delivering your productions. Okay, so the first one is handling sensitive information and vulnerable subjects. Okay, when editing stories about marginalized communities or sensitive issues, for instance, example, domestic abuse or mental health, ensure empathy in the narrative. So this could involve carefully choosing the language that we use to describe events and avoiding potentially harmful generalizations or stereotyping. It's crucial to prioritize the well-being of individuals involved and to avoid causing further distress, right? So we need to safeguard the vulnerable individuals involved in our program. Obscuring identities, we may need to blur or maybe we may need to modify voices when airing interviews with whistleblowers or victims to protect their privacy and safety. And this is particularly important when dealing with cases of sexual assault, for instance, child abuse. You invite the victims, for instance, or other situations where revealing identities could lead to harassment and retaliations. And you may also need to do post-edit review. So maybe in collaborating with legal or editorial advisors to assess whether sensitive content can unintentionally cause harm or defamation. So for example, before airing a story about a controversial topic, it is important to consider whether the content could be interpreted or biased or inflammatory. So seeking guidance from legal or editorial professionals can help ensure that the content is presented responsibly and ethically. So refer to the legal advisors or the corporate com may use this strategy. Corrections and accountability post-broadcast. Right? So after we protect our programs, then we do corrections and accountability. So post-edit disclaimer. So if critical information emerges after production, so we can insert disclaimers or footnotes to correct or clarify our content. Okay, for example, if a guest statement is later found to be factually inaccurate, a disclaimer can be added at the end of the program. So even though it's a live program, then you may need to post-edit and you insert the disclaimer for next scheduling. Another one is easy access to corrections. So provide on-air announcements or digital updates when post-production errors are identified after the initial broadcast. So this can include a brief correction during a later news bulletin, for instance, or a notice on the radio station's website. But we need to inform the listeners. So own the responsibility. Publicly acknowledge editing mistakes to maintain transparency and credibility with your audience. Radio announcer or program producers should explicitly apologize for any errors and explain the steps taken to prevent similar mistakes in the future. So this demonstrates accountability and strengthen trust with your listeners. But if you are handling the first two process carefully, then you may not to do this, inshallah. But somehow these are important steps need to be taken. That is corrections and accountability. Admit your mistakes or our mistakes. All right. Okay. Third one is managing listeners' feedback. Feedback reflections. Engage with listeners' feedback received through phone calls or emails or our social media comments. Use this feedback to inform future broadcasts, especially when addressing sensitive or controversial topics. For example, if a program discusses the ethics of reporting on a specific social issue, consider incorporating listener opinions on the issue in the next broadcast by providing a more nuanced perspective. And respect differing views. We do not censor or exclude dissenting opinions, but showcasing a range of viewpoints in subsequent programs demonstrates transparency and encourages open dialogue. All right. And for instance, if a program features an interview with a politician advocating for a certain policy, so ensure to follow up with an interview with a different political figure with a contrasting viewpoint so that we can have two different perspectives based on the listeners' feedbacks. For instance, maybe they need two perspectives. Engaging through edits. Insert reference to audience participation during previous shows, and this builds a sense of community and makes listeners feel like their voices are being heard. For example, during a program on environmental sustainability, mention the insightful comments received from listeners in a previous episode about sustainable practices. Maybe you requested your listeners to interact with you through phone calls, but somehow due to certain consequences, maybe in terms of timing, you got not enough time, but somehow you can bring the recordings forward so that the listeners have the trust on you because they have put the effort, all right, to interact with your program. So engagement through your editing. So you can edit the previous recordings and carry it into your next broadcasting. Okay.
Doctor?
Yes.
We have passed the time.
Oh, okay. I'll try to expedite, yeah? Okay, we got a few more. Okay, 4 is multi-platform ethics for radio content. 4, cross-platform consistency, ethical promotion, as well as avoid misleading teasers. And lastly is fast-checking and quality control, all right? Where we need to verify our information, our script and content reviewer, and make sure internal approvals. Why is it important? Yes, because now we are also being challenged by AI, because we are now having our AI DJs. So this is Aina, our Malaysia's first AI radio DJ in Fly FM. So ethics are very, very crucial. Not even human beings can violate our ethics of conduct, but somehow now we are challenged by AI and we need more. Our responsibilities are getting bigger. All right, so the post-production and the whole process of production, basically in ethics in Islam, particularly in the context of dakwah, we are encouraging good and preventing evil by using the media platform. So the stages of radio programming, from planning to production to post-production, are integral to creating content that is not only engaging but also ethically sound. So adhering to principles of truthfulness, fairness, privacy, social responsibility, cultural sensitivity, and essential. All these are essential for maintaining the integrity of radio broadcasting. And by prioritizing these ethical considerations, radio programmers can contribute to media landscape that is informative, inclusive, and respectful of diverse audience. Okay, we will refer to Surah Fusilat verse 33. Okay, Alhamdulillah, thank you. That's all from me. All right.
Thank you very much, Doctor.
Okay.
I think there is many questions there.
Oh,
but because we have passed the time already, so maybe we can only answer. Maybe we can answer one question, Doctor.
All right.
I think there is in the chat box. Doctor, can you check there?
Hold on,
Yeah.
Okay, which one? Reporting. Okay. Why reporting news from CNN, Reuters don't have our own official news among OIC, Middle East, we just process entry and scene. Okay, talking about the because this is radio programming, yeah, compared to TV programming. But in broadcasting, it is very crucial for us to understand the ownership. Okay, the ownership of the station. So if it's owned by the government, then yes, we need to be biased. But most of the agenda is you need to rule by what is meant to us. Okay, so it depends on the ownership of the broadcasting station. We have impacts on radio station reputations. That is really caring to get things right. Sensitive to proper pronunciation. Yes, being sensitive to proper pronunciations of names, of course. Yeah. For instance, in Malaysia, we have India, Chinese, and Malay. But at the same time, we have also our Borneo friends. Yeah. So, for example, in terms of pronunciation, yeah, sometimes it for Sarawakian or for Sabahan, so we might want to use people from Sabahan or Sarawakian as the DJ. And now they also have their own stations because through their cultural diversity, they are more knowledgeable in terms of their culture, in terms of their pronunciations. Because sometimes there are certain pronunciation that we thought it was right for us to say or to pronounce. But to Sabahan or Sarawakian, no, it's not the proper terms to or not the right way to pronounce certain terms. Okay, is that helps? So that is why we have several types of radio stations. We have government owned, we have corporate owned, we have also community stations to serve that specific community. Okay. Alright, I'll the rest inshallah I'll comment in the text box inshallah after this. Is that okay?
Yeah. Okay, Doctor. Thank you very much, Doctor.